Yes, good evening. My name is Wallace Gator Bradley, and I'm the host of the Bradley Report. I'm also the president of United in Peace, Inc. We got an interesting show, but we're going to talk about politics. Politics, politics, politics. Because May 26th is the first day of early voting in the county of Cook and in Chicago. May 19th was early voting across the state. But we're going to talk about Cook County, which is one of the biggest counties in Illinois. We're going to talk about the race for the first congressional seat that Bobby Rush gave up. We're going to talk about the mysterious poll, not mysterious to the point that nobody knew who put the poll out there. It was Senator Collins. She's a candidate in the 1st Congressional District. She put out a poll, and the outcome of the poll was what Jonathan Jackson ended up with 19%, and Pat Dow and Senator Collins ended up with 14%, and everybody else, with 17 people in the race, everybody else got probably anywhere from 3 to maybe 9%, including the candidate that Bobby Rush is endorsing. There's a lot of issues that's out there too. We just saw where in Texas, I believe there was a shooting in a school where possibly 14 people got shot, a lot of children. 14 people got killed, I believe, and some of them were children in the school. Since this violence with the gun, but this was a targeted shooting, pretty much like the shooting that happened in New York or Brooklyn, whatever that was in New York, where they went to a store that was an African American community. This shooting at the school was in a rural area in Texas. I think they had maybe 16,000 people in that town. That individual that was involved in that shooting, he got killed. There's a lot of shooting that's been happening here in Chicago. The 2 individuals that were responsible for the mass shootings at the McDonald's on Chicago and State, they got caught. They're looking for a 3rd individual who gave the guy the gun that did the shooting. He's going to probably get caught. From what I read in that story, the young individuals that was involved in that shooting, 3 of them went down the red line right there on Chicago Avenue and tried to go to the other side of the tracks. 2 of the guys got up and went to the other side of the track. They caught them, and then a young lady, is my understanding from what I read, she accidentally touched the 3rd rail and got a shock of her life, and probably got a bigger shock when she got arrested. Okay? And as you know, the individual that was responsible for shooting the young man at the beam, he got apprehended on the scene. And I talked about this last week because hearing the mother say that she had told him not to go downtown. And she put emphasis on consequences, accountability and consequences. But like I said, we're going to talk about politics. We're going to talk about politics. We're going to talk about politics. We're going to talk about Secretary of State's race. Okay? And the bogus commercial where you got one candidate putting out disinformation to the point that some people say, if you close your eyes, you'll think from my actions with the commercial of misinformation that she was doing the same thing that the guy Irvin was doing. I don't know. I'm going to let you be the judge of that. Okay? I want to say that a lot of these issues that I bring to you, my viewing audience, is with the support and the research and at the direction after the discussion by none other than the chairman of United Peace Inc. She's also the director and producer of this show. That is my wife, Miss Terry Marsh Bradley. And tonight I'm being assisted by a wonderful, charming young lady. She has a show on as well. And as Sister Sylvia is what I call her. Okay, she have her own show where she be talking about politicians, hey, what y'all got to say so my people can hear what you got to say so that they will know. So the voters can make an educated choice. Powerful show, powerful show. With that, I want to say, to God be the glory. Let's get on to the story. Miss Sylvia, let's start with the movers and the shakers. Okay, thank you. You know, before I bring this up, oh, right there, Sylvia. Before I bring this up, I want to let you know something about the poll. That's what I was talking about earlier. So allow me a moment to read this to you. Senator Collins had put out a poll, or she had a poll taken. In the poll taken for Collins in a 17-person race to replace Bobby Rush, a whopping 84% of the respondents said they are almost certain to vote in the primary. Though the poll did not ask how they was going to vote, whether it's a mail-in vote or whatever it is, but I'm letting you know, since you say you're going to vote, we're looking for you. May 26th, early voting. I'll be voting early that day as well. Polls at this stage, especially for the crowded first district primary, are used by campaigns to text messages, name identification, figure out the politics of the electorate, all crucial to determining out how to target their voters. The first district, Collins Poster Lake Research Partners polled 400 people, likely Democratic primary voters, between May 10th to the 12th, with a margin of error plus or minus 4.9%. There are 17 contenders in the first district, which stretches from near South Side to outside of Kankakee. The Collins poll only asked about 5, all from Chicago. She only asked about 5 candidates, okay? And all of them were from Chicago. She didn't, her poster didn't ask about the other 12, okay? Who already are considered the front runners, the 5 front runners, measured either by money raised, key endorsements, and whether they hold elected office. Strategists that were interviewed working on the first district campaigns all agreed a nominee could be determined with as little as 20% to 30% of the vote. Now that's important because a lot of people thought they would have to get 50% plus 1. That's not the case here. It said it could be determined with as little as 20% to 30% of the vote. That's very interesting. This primary is wide open. 42% of the voters are undecided. Respondents were told that Pat Dow was an alderman, Collins was a state senator, and Jonathan Jackson was the son of Reverend Jesse Jackson. Then, from what I'm reading in the story, the author of the story asked, if you had to decide today and could not be undecided, 19% said they would lean towards Jackson. 19% said that they would lean towards Jonathan Jackson. 14% for Dow and Collins, Alderman Pat Dow and Illinois State Senator Collins. 5% for Karen Norrington Reeves, the CEO of Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership, who was endorsed by Bobby Rush. That was Bobby Rush hand-picked candidate. No one really know, evidently. 5%. And 3% for Jonathan Swain, a Hyde Park businessman. Reverend Jackson Sr. surfaced as a key factor. When asked about a Jonathan Jackson, 43% said they never heard about him. After identifying him as the son of the famous Reverend, then only 12% said they never heard about him. Advertising in the 1st District, there is very little advertising so far. No paid television, cable, or digital, or direct mail, according to the FEC reports as of March 31st. Swain had the most cash on hand. Becky Curl, a Swain campaign advisor, said, without the resources to get their message out, even if you start with good name ID, other candidates with a funding to communicate their poll-tested messaging will have the advantage, especially in a wildly crowded race with no one person breaking away from other top-tier candidates. I can agree to that, because the most important thing out of the 17 candidates running, inclusive of Jonathan Jackson, a lot of the Congress folks in Washington don't know them. If they were to do a poll just on the Congressional Black Caucus, Jonathan would win that poll hands down. And if you don't know who to go talk to try to get legislation passed or become a part of legislation passed to bring resources back to the 1st Congressional District, it's going to take a rookie at least 2 terms. Jonathan's not going to have that problem. He can pick up the phone and call to Maxine Waters and get a return call or have her pick up the call. I'll take my word for it. Google it. Ask the question. What I'm about to show you now. Oh, Brother Omari's in the house. Hey, sir. All right. Another fine gentleman that helped me do the wherewithal with this technical thing, man. I just look like I know what I'm doing. But it's them that's making it do what it do. I appreciate you too, man. Hey, Jonathan, could you hit this? That's on there now?
Cocktails and conversation. We are here talking about the movers, shakers, and lawmakers. Let's talk about it. We'll move on to the next question. And I'll ask the panelists, within about 150 words or so, why should black-owned businesses No, here's the challenge here, right? Because as professionals, we are always prepared with our 30-second to 60-second elevator speech, that powerful, impactful, here's why. Here's why you want to know me. And so in this question I ask, why should black-owned business owners vote for you?
The question will be repeated again, please.
Absolutely.
Manufacturing back in here. After COVID and this disruption in supply chain, there's going to be onshoring of manufacturing jobs. We need to be going to the Congress and talking with those other elected officials to lobby them to tell them why Chicago is a preferred area to do this investment. That's why I want to be your congressman, to bring the relationships from the people I've already worked with that know me so that I can share them with you.
My name is Jonathan Jackson.
running for Congress. I'd like to be your federal representative to serve in the House of the Federal Representatives for the United States Congress. This is a federal seat. This seat gives us the opportunity to weigh in on the Ukraine. It gives us the opportunity to weigh in on Afghanistan. It gives us the obligation and the opportunity to weigh in on Haiti. I went down to the borders and saw them turn Haitians around. This is something I've been an advocate for my entire life. I'm proud that my mother and father, Reverend Jackson and Mrs. Jackson, brought me up in a household that understood the value of community, that understood the value of caring, understood the value of not seeking necessarily public office, but doing public service as an obligation. This city has been extremely good to me. I am proud of it, proud to be a son of it, and I have an obligation to share and give back to the city that I love, that's meant so much. In these perilous times, and I'm very cognizant of what is going on, I have an obligation to teach, lead, give, and do all that I can. Once again, when I saw Engineer Young, that's not necessarily a district issue, that's a city issue, that's a humanitarian issue. And when I see people sit on the sideline and say nothing when a black woman is stripped bare naked because they're too afraid to confront officers that were in the wrong. And they were silent. If they were silent then, they will be silent in the future. When I saw Commander John Burge torturing men, I spoke out against it. I'm proud to say I'm a friend of Gator Bradley, went with him to the White House and helped him get his pardon under the governor here in the state of Illinois. I aligned myself, not because I have a record, it's because I know all of us can be turned around. There are 5.2 million Americans that have felony convictions that are disenfranchised, that have lost their right to vote. That's a federal issue. Joe Biden won technically by 400,000 votes across the nation. Although he had 7 million more votes than Mr. Trump, he only won with 400,000 votes. The previous election, Mrs. Clinton had 3 million more votes than Trump, and Trump technically won with 70,000 votes. Our right to vote is under attack, and it's nationwide. I understand what's going on. I'm committed to fighting it. I want to be your voice. I want to change that. I want to bring the resources back home to make our community better and safer so we can grow. The structure of banking, which is a federal issue, one way that the federal government could do is going zip code and area specific to grant new financial institution licenses that would let these lenders be able to invest and lend in a smaller number. The second part I will tell you is it is hard doing business in this city, extremely hard. That is why the number one issue we have to confront for helping black-owned businesses is to stop the exodus of African Americans leaving this city. Why are they leaving? I would say because of two reasons: lack of opportunity and lack of safety. About 15 years ago, I was very much interested in trying to stem this tide away. I invested in a building on 4641 South King Drive that became later known as Jokes and Notes. And I was very proud to that. And what I thought I would be doing when I bought that abandoned AT&T payment center is starting an investment trend in Bronzeville. You got a Chinatown, a Greektown. You got everybody else has a town in the strip. So I went over there full speed ahead, and I was hoping there'd be a hip hop club and what's that? The jazz club, okay, and a house club, and a gospel, that everyone could continue to pour in there. But because of the level of violence and the lack of public safety, that building today is boarded up because there was another shooting in there in November 7th. So the neighborhoods have changed. We need increased public safety to let more businesses come in here. You cannot run your business that's in a very capricious, haphazard manner, and white businesses can't get more safety and security than black businesses. Now, Desjoie is a fine institution. They need more safety, security, opportunity. And what can the federal government do? We've got to take out some of the racism, all of the racism in the financial institution.
Why should black-owned business owners vote for you?
A, I am one. B, I understand how it works. And C, this relationship in the Congress is about bringing your relationships to bear that you will share. I'm proud to receive the endorsement of Chuy Garcia. Mexico is our second leading trading partner. We have to look at NAFTA and agreements to figure out what relationship we can manufacture here and also share. I'm proud to say that Congressman Benny Thompson from Mississippi has endorsed. He's the chair of the cybersecurity and the Homeland Security. What does that mean? There are 2 million cybersecurity jobs that are unfilled that need to be addressed. The third part is Mr. Rokana, the congressman from Silicon Valley, is coming to town on Thursday to be with me as we go to a tech incubator and sites. I want to share and bring those relationships to our community. We've lost 261,000 African Americans to this region. They have left. We have to bring in relationships, let people know that Chicago is not a killing field, that we want to do business. That is not our image outside of this city. We have to turn that around. The last point I'll leave you with is Ford Motor Company. We have to have an eye on the future. Ford Motor Company went to West Tennessee, outside of Memphis. They left West Memphis 70 years ago, in 1952. They have just now returned to West Memphis. They've made an $11 billion investment in electrical vehicles. I want us to get in the conversation to bring manufacturing back in here. After COVID and this disruption in supply chain, there's going to be onshoring of manufacturing jobs. We need to be going to the Congress and talking with those other elected officials to lobby them to tell them why Chicago is a preferred area to do this investment. That's why I want to be your congressman, to bring the relationships from the people I've already worked with that know me so that I can share them with you.
You know, I'm sharing that with you. Based off the poll that I just read to you, I believe the more that people realize what's happening, the more that people realize that you got to have a person that knows what he's doing, why he's doing it, and who he need to work with to bring about a common sense solution to some of the ills within the 1st Congressional District. At that meeting that you just witnessed, it had came out that somehow or another, $30 million was sent to Chicago to help small businesses. But the constituents didn't really know that it was here, and the money ended up going back to Washington. That's what I heard at that event. There's going to be a town hall meeting that for those of you who want to ask Professor Jonathan Jackson the questions that you feel need to be addressed, be you friend or foe, that's going to be Monday, June 13th, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Again, that's going to be Monday, June 13th, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. It's a town hall meeting where you can ask Jonathan Jackson the questions that address your concerns. And it's going to be at 754 East 77th Street. That's 754 East 77th Street. I believe that's Reverend Thurston's church. It's the New Covenant Missionary Baptist Church. It's going to be at the New Covenant Missionary Baptist Church, 754 East 77th Street, Reverend Thurston's church. And that's going to be Monday, June 13th, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Please be there. There was a conversation where this woman got knocked off the ballot, and she was running to become our next sheriff against Dart. Well, a judge overruled the electoral board and said that she can run. She need to be put back on the ballot. Brother Omar, could you hit that little blue right there?
Judge overrules Cook County Electoral Board, says rival to Sheriff Tom Dart should be put back on ballot. Nearly 3 weeks after being declared ineligible to run in the Democratic primary, one of Cook County Sheriff Tom Dart's main rivals was allowed back in the race Monday by a Cook County judge who ruled the county electoral board erred in removing her from the ballot. Carmen Navarro-Jercone's successful appeal of a decision by the Cook County Electoral Board comes with little more than a month to go before the June 28 primary. Dart's campaign had argued that she was ineligible to run under a controversial new state law that requires sheriff's candidates to be registered law enforcement officers. In a tersely worded ruling on Monday, Judge Nicole Patton called the board's actions a clear dereliction of duty and said the board's decision incorrectly relied on an interpretation of the law from the Illinois Law Enforcement Training and Standards Board. The Electoral Board failed to decide any factual issues. The board failed to make an independent ruling. The board merely threw up its hands and made an unprecedented stance to assign their statutory duties to another agency, Patton wrote in her ruling. At a news conference on Monday, Navarro-Jercone praised the judge's decision and said she hopes that the voters are ready to tackle issues such as electronic monitoring reform, the sheriff's office's methods for handling warrants, and better training for police and correctional officers. The Dart campaign plans to appeal Patton's ruling so voters can have faith that they will be actually voting on candidates who are lawfully eligible to hold the office of Cook County Sheriff, campaign spokesman Joe Ryan said. It is incredibly important for Cook County voters to know that those running for office are legally qualified to hold that office, Ryan said in a text message. Sheriff Dart had nothing to do with creating this law, but he is nonetheless bound to follow it just as are all candidates. Navarro-Jercone was kicked off the primary ballot under a law that took effect this year requiring anyone running for a sheriff's position in Illinois to be a certified law enforcement officer. While she was never a sworn police officer, Navarro-Jercone had training as a corrections officer, and was once a sergeant, a lieutenant and an assistant chief at the sheriff's office. This new state law was tucked deep within the 700-page Safety, Accountability, Fairness and Equity Today Law, or SAFE-T Act, that was signed by Governor J.B. Pritzker in 2021. Dart, Cook County Sheriff for 16 years, was once a prosecutor but never a sworn police officer. While his status is not an issue because he is grandfathered in under the new law, Dart received a law enforcement certification late last year, according to state records. Sign up for The Spin to get the top stories in politics delivered to your inbox weekday afternoons. The board that took the 2-1 vote to take Navarro-Jercone off the ballot was made up of designees from 3 county-wide office holders: Cook County State's Attorney Kim Fox, Cook County Clerk Karen Yarbrough, and Cook County Circuit Court Clerk Iris Martinez, who has endorsed Navarro-Jercone. The board members chosen by Fox and Yarbrough voted to have Navarro-Jercone removed, while Martinez's designee voted to keep Navarro-Jercone on the ballot. Martinez had drawn criticism from Dart's campaign for not recusing herself or her board appointee because in addition to endorsing Navarro-Jercone, she is also her current boss. In February, one of the chief sponsors of the SAFE-T Act, State Representative Justin Slaughter, a Chicago Democrat, told the Tribune that the controversial provision was added to the legislation at the behest of the Illinois Sheriff's Association. But he did acknowledge there have been several questions, which I think, to be honest with you, need to be sorted out. Jim Katechuk, executive director of the Sheriff's Association, said in February he thought the new rule was fair because most people have the expectation that a sheriff is a cop, while declining to comment on the specifics of the Cook County Sheriff's race. Dart's other challengers in the Democratic primary are Chicago Police Sergeant Noland Rivera and LaTanya Ruffin, who has worked as a South Suburban police officer. Journer at chicagotribune.com. Copyright 2021, Chicago Tribune. Copyright 2021, Chicago Tribune.
You know, that's why voting is so important. one can be a law today, can be
Questions.
changed,
It raises
to mean
questions
something
that-
else tomorrow. That sheriff's race is very, very important. I know all three of the candidates. I do know some of the wonderful things that Dart is doing at the county jail. But as the game goes, people always feel like something better can be done. Okay? So with that, I want to say, vote your choice for who you feel would be the best sheriff for Cook County. I know all three of them. But I know Dart specifically for some of the good things that he's doing in the county jail because I've known him the longest. Me, I'm going to cast my vote for the best sheriff to be the sheriff of Cook County. With that, you know, Secretary of State's race is very, very important. Anna Valencia is catching a lot of heat, because of the things that she was doing. From what I've read and from what I've heard in the news reports, the same as what you've heard. A lot of people, including myself, feel like if those individuals that had endorsed her after the Cook County Democratic Party had endorsed Alexis Janulius did not really know the unethical and possible illegal things that she was doing to help to financially benefit her husband, who happened to be a lobbyist. Because I believe if they did, they wouldn't endorse her. But they haven't unendorsed her now that they know that she's doing it. So I'm just saying, voters, you be the one to decide. One thing for sure, don't forget Governor Ryan went to jail not because of what he was doing as a governor, but because of what they allege that he had did as a Secretary of State. There's been a call for the new Inspector General of Cook County to investigate Anna Valencia. Brother Amari, could you hit that for me, please?
Raises questions. It raises questions that warrant evaluation and inquiry.
Former Chicago Inspector General Joe Ferguson weighing in tonight on the cloud hanging over City Clerk Anna Valencia for emails suggesting she may have tried to open doors for business opportunities in New Orleans and elsewhere for Ignite Cities, a consulting firm where her husband Rayad Cosme is managing director.
In this town, where there's smoke, people are quick to say there's fire. Right now, we have an appearance issue. That's not necessarily smoke, and it's certainly not necessarily fire.
Valencia has denied any wrongdoing despite questions raised by numerous emails and now a subpoena from the New Orleans City Council to the mayor there seeking all documents and communications with George Burciaga, Anna Valencia, and Rayad Cosme.
I have nothing to do with any of my husband's business dealings whatsoever.
Valencia is running for Secretary of State and has been endorsed by Jesse White, who is retiring.
So she's in tough space, and in political space, you know, the greatest inoculation would be to publicly say, I've reached out to the IG and I've asked for an opportunity to sit down and talk with them. But there isn't sufficient information, and there will not be sufficient information developed in the time before the election for people to draw hard conclusions one way or the other.
Ferguson said Chicago is way behind the best practices of places like California, where public officials have to disclose all of the business relationships of their spouses.
The likelihood that we would be in this exact situation vastly diminished if we had full disclosure laws.
Ferguson says it's understandable that Valencia's situation would be politicized in this election season, but he says at this point the facts are not conclusive of any wrongdoing. at City Hall. Craig Wall, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Now, you know, he says the facts. Evidently,
You're a prick.
he's not aware. And it might be good that he had the Inspector General, because it would be a cover-up. Can you play this right here, Brother Omari?
Anna Valencia strongly denying today that she has done anything improper and calling the request for an investigation politically motivated. Within minutes of the City Council approving Deborah Witzberg as the new Chicago Inspector General, Alderwoman Silvana Tabares calling for an investigation into City Clerk Anna Valencia, sending this letter to Witzberg alleging Valencia inappropriately used her position as an elected citywide office holder to benefit the business interests of her lobbyist husband.
The city clerk, Anna Valencia, really stepped over the line, and the public deserves to know by how far and what are we doing to ensure that doesn't happen again.
Valencia, who is running for Secretary of State, came under scrutiny for emails that showed she helped connect her husband's consulting company, Ignite Cities, with officials in New Orleans who were looking to ramp up internet service there. Today, even as Valencia conducted votes at City Council, the New Orleans City Council held a special meeting as it investigates possible contract rigging, even though the contract with Ignite Cities was canceled.
I have nothing to do with any of my husband's business dealings whatsoever. And what I think is really sad by this is a political stunt by my opponent, Alexis Giannoulias, to distract from his failed record.
Tabares has endorsed Giannoulias in the Secretary of State's race. Today, Michelle Smith, who chairs the Ethics Committee, introduced an ordinance to strengthen ethics requirements. She was asked to weigh in on the Valencia investigation request.
I think when someone makes an allegation and brings it to the Inspector General should investigate.
Should Chicagoans have this investigation done so that they don't have any concerns?
Look, I have nothing to do with my husband's dealings. I'm here to serve the people. I'm here with integrity. I've served with integrity, open, transparency my whole career.
Valencia is in a three-way Democratic race for Secretary of State with Alexis Giannoulias and Alderman David Moore. Moore telling me tonight that if the Inspector General feels there's some impropriety, she should investigate it. Rob?
You know, I'm giving it to you from what I witnessed and from what I've read and from what I've noticed. Let me say that again. From what I witnessed from the news reports, from what I witnessed, how they broke it down. And by me being a former criminal, and I got a pardon from the governor, I did my time for the crime. When I read how they broke it down from, I believe it was 2017 or 2018, all the way to April or January of 2022, it read like an indictment. They got documented, verifiable facts of the things that she has done. Okay? Even to the point that when the Sun-Times or the Tribune had the three candidates come together for, can I say, editorial board meeting, either at the Sun-Times or the Tribune, and those questions was asked. They was allowed to ask one another questions and everything else. And especially behind the commercial that Anna Valencia put out that was full of misinformation. Tried to say that Alexis Giannoulias was a Trump supporter, supported an individual that was pro-abortion. She was straight up lying. And she was taking advantage of the fact that the 5 Supreme Court justices, United States Supreme Court justice, is making a move to get rid of Roe versus Wade, to try to get the impression like the Secretary of State race has something to do with that, because she's a woman and Alexei is a man. Brother Omar, could you hit this story right here? Should be a little, there it is.
Well,
right
today
there.
in DuPage County on the first day of early voting.
Well, we're going out of town next week, so gotta vote.
Today, the 3 Democrats on the ballot for Secretary of State, Alexei Giannoulias, an investment company CEO, Alderman David Moore, and City Clerk Anna Valencia squaring off in a candidate forum as they fight for voters. Valencia launching her first TV ad, making abortion an issue, falsely claiming a candidate Giannoulias once supported was not pro-choice, and misrepresenting an op-ed he wrote 2 days before the 2016 presidential election to imply Giannoulias supported Donald Trump. He did not.
I don't think it's a misrepresentation, it's a lie. And the media has called her out on it.
Valencia defending the ad.
Hell yeah, I'm defending. It's time for men like him, born of privilege, to be held accountable for his words. Words matter.
Giannoulias launching his own new ad with a flurry of news clips about Valencia's questionable dealings to help her lobbyist husband Rayed Cosme. It comes as new emails and texts suggest Cosme was looking for his wife's help in 2019 and 2020 to land a contract for a digital billboard business in the Illinois Medical District.
People are sick and tired of lobbyists and her using the office to enrich her and her husband. Those aren't my words. That's the media who has requested these FOIAs, who has noticed what's taken place.
Valencia denies doing anything improper.
So we're going to be out here talking about the facts, and we're not going to be bullied out of this race.
David Moore, who has not run any TV spots, hoping to rise above the fray.
Not that I'm trying to, I do, because I don't have any ethical issues. That's why. I'm not ethically challenged.
For those who already knew who they were going to vote for, early voting was a great option. In the meantime, the candidates will continue to try to influence those undecided voters with an increasing number of appearances and commercials in the weeks ahead. Craig Wall, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
You know, what makes this race very important to you, the Democratic voter, is her actions can drag that ticket, Democratic ticket, into a deep hole. The Republican Party, Ken Griffin, with all the money, is financing a former U.S. attorney to run for Secretary of State, building it up on corruption. The same Ken Griffin that used Madigan as the boogeyman and corruption to get rid of a Democratic Supreme Court judge. This election, there's 2 Supreme Court seats up for election. And if they dealing with the inference of corruption, ingrained corruption, and he got the money to push that message, we're going to end up with a Republican Secretary of State, a Supreme Court in Illinois, where the Republicans got the majority vote, and we're going to end up with a Republican governor because of the way that the Republicans' message is being laid. And Ken Griffin is just as worse as Trump. He has no problem with Trump. He has no problem with Ronna. That's his message. That's what he's pushing. The guy he's pushing for governor is just a black face to confuse the black electorate. And what she did is verifiable She was trying to do the same program with Mayor Lightfoot by coming to someone in her administration trying to do something with the Illinois Medical District. But Mayor Lightfoot shut it off once this got exposed about what she was doing in New Orleans on behalf of her husband. He had no business trying to lobby the city when his wife is an elected official for the city. He wasn't supposed to be lobbying the state. Y'all know all these things. So I'm saying it's imperative that you elect Alexi Janulius to be the Secretary of State of Illinois to protect this democracy and in support of pro-choice, okay, and in support of anti-voter suppression, which is what the Republican Party is about. I'm not calling her no Republican. I'm telling you what is at stake. If the Secretary of State become in the hands of the Republican Party, you're hearing this all over the country, by Trump sympathizers, they have the power to certify the elections in 2024. And if they make the decision, let me make it simple for you to understand. If 2024, there's the election, Biden running for re-election, and Trump or a Trump sympathizer become the Republican candidate, and Biden win again, he win Illinois, but you got a Republican that's the Secretary of State, he can make the decision not to certify Biden's votes that made him the winner and say that the Republican won. Because all the Republican candidates are pushing the big lie that Trump didn't lose the race was stolen from him. I'm saying this, the things that Chicago City Clerk Anna Valencia did, she need to resign from that office, from that elected office. Especially behind her putting that commercial out there that was full of misinformation. But like Janulia says, she lied. And that's the one thing about a lie. It grow and grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. But it never get taller than the truth. With that, I want to say make sure that you come out and vote early, May 26th. And the next show, we're going to talk about the judges. But here's 4 judges, or 4 people running for judges, I need for you to vote for. And that's Deidre Bowman, that's Judge Rena Marie Van Tine, that's Judge Thomas Donnelly, okay? And that's countywide. You can vote for them. In the 9th Sub-Circuit, you can vote for Sanjay Taylor. And I'm hearing that in the 5th Sub-Circuit, for Shelley's seat, there's a young lady, I think her name is Judy Lynn Smith. and the 1st Congressional District elect Jonathan L. Jackson to become the next congressman for the 1st Congressional District. To God be the glory. Y'all be safe, stay prayerful,